So our next topic is dear to everybody right now is we're going to talk a little bit about NDC, but our pillar that we're going to be addressing at this particular session is operational excellence, innovation, and technology. And the name of our topic that Pam is going to be providing us is Let's Air It Out, a chat on NDC with industry experts. So I have the honor to introduce Pam Zager, who is our Executive Vice President of Operations.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Is my mic working? Yes. No, it's not working. Testing. Are we working now? No. How's now? Oh, okay.
You got to hold it up.
It's going to be a long session if I have to do this. Anyways, good afternoon, everyone. And Barbara, I have to tell you, your session was fantastic. You know, we're truly blessed with the advisory board that we have. You know, the alum is just unbelievable. And you can see on stage the connection they have, right?
They all really like each other, and it's a great networking. But we have great clients.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm equally as excited for this session. I'm going to be honest here. I'm a little starstruck because I have an amazing panel, right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And I know we joked about NDC. First of all, I think right now, if everyone's in agreement, let's rename NDC, right? Let's call it MDC, Modern Distribution Capability, right? There's nothing new about it. But there's not a single week, I'm tempted to say day, there's not a single day that we don't see something in the media or conversations that are existing around NDC or MDC or modern retailing. It's the buzz, there's no question. And I know it can be very overwhelming. But as we've been talking about today, there's a theme that we have, and that is transformation, it's modernization. And what I don't see a lot in the media, Barb, is them talking about that this is the biggest transformation, at least in my history in travel. And I've been doing this for a long time, a few years.
Not as long as me, Pam, not as long as me.
But that can be very exciting, right? Don't you think?
It is. It's a lot. I said this past few months has been very challenging for all of us, and it is the biggest change we've had.
It really is. And
it's exciting change.
Exciting change. But I want to give account management and operations a lot of credit at World Travel because your team's been doing an amazing job.
Yep, and same with operations. So we have a great team all the way around. So it's wonderful. So I'll let you get at your session.
Yeah, because it's a good one. Up, maybe. I think I'm stuck. There we go. I almost had to do the session barefoot with my mic in my mouth. So without further ado, I have the distinct honor of introducing an amazing panel here. First, let me start with Kathy Morgan. Kathy Morgan is the Vice President of Product Management and Distribution Experiences at Sabre Travel Solutions. Kathy has worked in the travel industry for over 30 years and has held a variety of leadership positions at Sabre in support of the agency and travel provider communities. In her current role as Vice President of Product Management Distribution Experiences, Kathy is responsible for defining and driving Sabre's product strategy and roadmap for the next generation retailing and distribution solutions, which includes NDC, now named MDC, and leads a team responsible for building platform solutions to enable these capabilities. Kathy has led Sabre's NDC efforts for more than 2 decades. Fun fact about Kathy, she is the youngest of 6, which she contributes to her ability to speaking fast, because if she wasn't able to do so, she didn't have a voice at the dinner table. Please welcome Kathy. Our next panelist, please join me in welcoming Max Miller. Max is the head of Partner Success Travel at SAP Concur. He leads various teams supporting alliance, account and program management functions with responsibility for developing and executing strategy with travel management companies, TMCs, partners, and alliances. Max has more than 20 years of industry experience developing strategic and revenue-generating partnerships focused on customer value and mutual partnership growth. Max joined SAP Concur in 2013 as part of their acquisition of TRX. Fun fact about Max, he's a former CPA for a Fortune company, and here's another fun fact, he spends his free time chasing a 4-year-old daughter, and he's a competitive cyclist. Welcome, Max. And lastly, but certainly not least, please welcome me in joining Jeff Lobl, Managing Director of Distribution Strategy. In this role, Jeff is responsible for guiding Delta's global distribution strategy and managing commercial relationships in global distribution systems, corporate booking tools, digital TMCs, online travel agencies, meta search partners, network planning, where he held the role of the managing director for network planning transatlantic, Asia Pacific, and joint ventures. Jeff was also recognized as a BTN Business Travel News 2021 Most Influential. Little fun fact about Jeff. He's in his final stretch of training for his first ever full marathon on May 5th, just 16 days away. Welcome. All right, so I know that this conversation is one that's near and dear to many who are here. I kind of feel like I need to open with, we had a GDS, an airline, and OBT walk into a bar. Okay. All right, I won't quit my day job. And they're still there, yeah. But, you know, I feel like we do need to take a little bit of a step back before we actually go into a lot of these questions. And again, I know that I'm going to leave 5 to 10 minutes for you to ask questions because this is what is the buzz out in the industry right now. You know, NDC, MDC, it was really launched, you know, by IATA in 2015. That's when it was launched. But the theory has existed for well over a decade. I mean, you've been doing it for 20 years, right? So this is not new. But what the design is it for to do is to allow airlines to distribute content to their customers in a way that they can package and retail. And that's why you hear called modern retailing, you know, NDC, we just have a new one, MDC, you know, et cetera. Right now, there's about 70 plus airlines that actually have the certification through IATA, because this was an IATA initiative, out of the 350 plus airlines that exist under IATA. So you see where that disparity, you know, can be, and where there's some confusion on how do I distribute, how do I sell, how do I service the content. So as I mentioned before, this is a big transformation in our industry. And what I hope you leave this meeting with, this session with, is a little bit more clarity, a little bit more understanding, and a little bit more comfort around today, tomorrow, in the future, because that's what this is all about. What we're doing today is designing what content distribution and agency services and airline services, et cetera, is going to be for the future. So feel very excited about where we are today, as scary as it might be, okay? So with that said, Jeff, I'm going to start with you. You know, when we think of Delta Airlines and we think of NDC, they are not synonymous at all. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Before we get to that, do we have any other marathon survivors in the house here? All right, so it is a survivable experience? Okay.
The ones that didn't aren't here. You get that, right?
I'm a little worried about how this is going to go. But first of all, thanks for having me. You know, Liz is a member of our advisory board. A lot of what you'll hear from me today it has been pressure tested with our advisory board that we rely very heavily on. So when it comes to NDC, the question that we get sometimes is, you know, what is Delta's view of NDC and where this is all headed? So let's just, for us, you know, this has never been about pushing technology into a market that is not ready for it or you know, isn't wanting that yet. So when we think about NDC, we think about two things, and this might be a little bit unique. We think about trust, and we think about value add. So on the trust thing, as we go through this journey, and like Pam was saying, I mean, this is a big transformation here, but we want to be the ones that take you guys through this journey without the stress, without the chaos, without the disruption, and without the difficulty that it can bring to your travel programs and wondering how you're going to manage this. So when this is all said and done, we would like to be judged by, we want your trust in us at Delta to be every bit as high, if not higher, than it is today. So that is critically important to us, and that's why you don't see us trying to push technology into a market before before we know that the market is ready for that. And we know because we spend a whole lot of time discussing with our very trusted partners here, and they're very direct with us about what the timing ought to be and when. And then secondly, on value add, this is not worth it if we don't find a higher ground than we can currently squeeze out of existing technology. Creating value by degrading existing value and then calling this somehow valuable, to us that doesn't fit any definition of value add. And so the only way that this is going to be a transformation that is worth doing is if we can provide a better experience to your travelers and to yourselves beyond that we can do today. And there's plenty of opportunities to do that, which I'm sure we're going to get into further in the panel. But in order to do this, we can't just do this ourselves, like sneak into a lab somewhere and emerge with some solution that we're going to go push on all of you and say, hey, do this. It has to be collaborative, and it is collaborative. So there's massive efforts going on right now that are kind of hearing about where the pitfalls are, what the concerns are, working through that, designing a platform that can accommodate all of that. And it's a very collaborative, there's lots of voices in the room. It's the only way to fulfill the vision that we have, which is to maintain your trust throughout this process. So it has never been our intention to be the first into market. It's our intention to be the best in the market. So that's kind of the Delta philosophy at its highest level.
That's fantastic. And Kathy, I'm going to segue over to you. Being a predominant GDS, can you discuss with us what your short-term and long-term vision is around NDC?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd say it's funny, I don't even break it up that way, short-term, long-term. And I don't break it up to think about what our strategy is pertaining to NDC, because it's really around what is Sabre's overall strategy, which is around being the preferred and premier travel technology platform for the travel industry. And we think about NDC as it is just a content source. Like, the fact that we're having to talk about this with corporations is ridiculous. And I have said that from day one. You should not care. I'm guessing you never cared about Edifact. You probably never cared about other XML, and you shouldn't care about NDC. I think we've just gotten a lot of things wrong with the way we, the industry, have addressed this, which I love sitting on a stage with a unicorn like Mr. Lobl, because I would tell you we wouldn't have this panel if we would have had that kind of rational thought early on in this initiative. So for Sabre, it's around how do we enable NDC. We need to have the greatest breadth and depth of content across all content sources, not just air, but again, what is the value proposition of the GDS? It is all around, content is the lifeblood. So at the moment we have content that's disintermediated or fragmented from our channel, then we're not delivering on our core value proposition to you and to you. Right. And so that's what we're focused on. And so NDC is just an expansion of what we already do and we do really well. And it's around taking the really complex problems and then trying to solve them in the most simplistic way. And I'll tell you, it is not simple, but certainly our objective as we thought about NDC was we need to be able to bring this content into a very complex ecosystem with many, many constituents, and it needs to behave the way content that you utilize today behaves. I think we've done a really good job with that. I think there's still more work to do, but certainly that is both my short-term and my long-term, is it just needs to show up and work.
Perfect. I'm going to applause that too. So Max, moving over to you. Concur being a top corporate online booking tool, I'm going to ask you the same question. But with that, you just released Evolution of Travel, also known as T2. Some of the questions that we get asked is there a difference between Evolution of Travel and T2? And what is your long-term, short-term vision, how it pertains to NDC?
Yeah, and good afternoon, everybody. Great to see a lot of friendly faces that certainly we've interacted before with. So first off, T2 and Evolution of Travel are the exact same thing. So T2 is sort of a project name we came up with as we were going through the development cycle, and our marketing team said, no, T2 is not a good word. So hence why we have marketed it as Evolution of Travel. And so Really, what Evolution of Travel is we've made a really, really large investment to re-platform Concur Travel. So we have rebuilt it from the ground up, and we reached out and got a lot of feedback from stakeholders, travel managers, travelers, airlines, GDSs, really to get a sense of what do people need when they're looking at an OBT. And so we took that to heart, and we've created sort of a new user experience. We believe it's more modern, it's more consumer-like, it's more intuitive for the traveler. It's easier to book and check out. And it's, you have omni search capabilities, and so we've been really excited about that. We've also addressed some new features and functionality. We know how important sustainability is, so we're partnering with Rust Carbon to give you filtering and searching capabilities along the sustainability side. We've made web and mobile parity between the two. We know that was important because our current solution didn't have those capabilities. So we've made a lot of good progress there. In terms of timing, sort of short-term, long-term, so it's a very iterative process. So we call it of evolution because, to roll this out across every one of our customers, it's multi-GDS, multi-TMC, all around the globe. So we're doing it in phases. And so this first phase, we focused on Sabre. And in this first phase, too, we fully recognize that there are some exclusions and limitations, and we're working through that. But our short-term vision is, as we roll out the next GDS, which is Amadeus, and then shortly after that, later this year, which will be Travelport Plus, we're going to be addressing those exclusions and limitations so we have parity with our current solution and evolution of travel. And then for us, it's about just driving more innovation. And so things that's more on our long-term roadmap are around, obviously, artificial intelligence. We're making huge investments within SAP to use that as a value proposition for us. And so you're going to see a lot more personalization. It's going to be a much smarter system. We're also going to be looking at introducing new ways, new booking flows, whether you have employees collaborating in teams or other technologies, right? The ability to collaborate, share reservations, and then be able to book directly through that, which flows into Concur Travel. We think that could be very interesting. And then on the content side, obviously we know we're talking about NDC. The other benefit of evolution of travel is we are fully focused on NDC. And like Jeff said, we want to make it easy and where it can optimize your travel experience and your managed travel programs. And so we're working really closely with our TMCs. Our preference is NDC through the GDS. So we just launched it with Sabre. We'll be launching it with Amadeus and Travelport. And we're really excited.
Great, thank you so much.
Can I just add one thing to that? This might surprise you somewhat coming from an airline. We're big supporters of this. I'm still a T2 guy. I can't.
Come on, Jeff.
I can't believe the marketing people think this new name is preferable to T2. Anyway.
Show of hands. Who likes T2? Raise your hand if you're T2. Jeez, I'm going to have to give this feedback to our marketing team.
But when we think about T2, we think about your travel programs, and it's no surprise that there's airlines out there that really want to lure your travelers onto their websites, and T1, I think no offense, Max, I think it's not the best of modern experiences, and so it makes the leap maybe to an airline website a little bit easier to sell. To us, we care about your travel programs, and if that's important to you, it's important to us. We believe that this modern interface looks an awful lot like an airline website, and that gap closes almost completely. And so, to us, T2 is a big benefit to our corporate customers. At least it seems that way to us. And so we are in full support of that. And then one other thing is, for those that, this gets kind of confusing, but for those that are unaware, you can adopt T2 without having NDC feeding into it if you want the modern experience for your travelers, but you're not ready for NDC yet. So that option certainly does exist. So anyway, a little sales job on Max's behalf.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. The check's in the mail. So.
That's fantastic. I should preface that these questions came from the webinars that we had and questions that we're collecting from our customers. So hopefully these are addressing exactly what your questions would be. But again, we're going to leave some time at the end for questions. So Jeff, one of the questions that we're asked quite a bit is, what will Delta's content differentiation strategy be via NDC? What are you hoping to incorporate?
Right. So content differentiation via NDC. So there's two ways that content can be differentiated between what exists today and NDC. One of them, like we were saying earlier, is to just pull content out of your existing, and then you can say, I've got better content on NDC. To me, that's a pretty cheap way to go about creating value in NDC. So the intention is to create value for your travelers over and above what can be done today. And there's plenty of opportunity to do that. We know that there is spend that's happening outside of your travel program that you're having to then scoop back in. It's because we can't make all of our products available through the legacy technology. It's very efficient for kind of the base fare, but bag check, for instance, lounge access, for instance. You don't have to worry about this with Delta because it's free, but Wi-Fi, for instance, ground transportation, for instance. And so we envision a world where that can actually be brought into your travel program, because with the new technology, we're not limited to just kind of origin, destination, and base fare, but we can actually sell you the full suite of everything. Not only does that bring it into your travel program, it gives you guys an opportunity to then negotiate that and pull that in. And importantly, it's not only content here, there's also a big servicing opportunity. As you guys know better than anyone, I think travelers want to be able to pick how they get service at any given moment. What we're seeing is sometimes they like to use their airline apps for simple stuff, or maybe even sometimes not quite so simple stuff. And other times they want to use their TMC. And it's complicated to switch back and forth because it's two completely different systems running in the background that don't bridge together well at all. In this NDC world, what we want to unlock for you guys is the freedom that your travelers can service anywhere they want, back and forth, and not have any seams in doing that. So that when we think about the value that we're going to create with NDC, it has to be kind of over and above what exists today. But to us, the idea of creating value by just reducing the value of what exists today just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I think I completely agree, I think you have to redefine what content means, because that's something that we think a lot about, that content is like this flight on this date and this inventory at this price. And as you start thinking about what more modern underlying technical rails allows you to do, is think about, I know many of you spend a lot of time negotiating beyond fare benefits, but they're really hard to get access to through any means of automated or technical measures. And again, NDC enables things that you can do that you might have put more, to Jeff's point, in that servicing bucket, but you need to start thinking about that as a type of content. So it's kind of everything that differentiates and drives value to your program, to your travelers, whether it's the experience at the airport, whether it's the experience on getting on a standby list because the flight's going to be, you've got an opportunity to get out early. All those things that are really hard today that requires that channel jumping and potentially puts things outside of your visibility. I think those are the things you also want to start thinking through as opportunities within the NDC world.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And I think when we look at the North Star of the future, that's really what it's about. So, Kathy, I'm going to keep it with you right now. You had mentioned how difficult it is right now, being able to be EDIFACT and NDC and bringing it all together. What are the current challenges? And then second to that, it's two questions in one. Are you experiencing any latencies issues trying to encompass it all?
Of course not. No.
That's a silly question.
Yeah, silly girl. Yeah, so let me kind of break that apart. So on the first part, I think you hit the nail on the head of what's making this so complicated. The numbers that you said at the beginning, we actually talk about there's over 4 airlines in the world, and there's maybe 25 airlines with really strong, solid NDC strategies and implementations, many, many more with what I'd call aspirations, a glimmer in their eye, but no real work done. And then the vast majority in numbers are not even on that journey yet. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, if we could have just woken up in a world that said, oh, the world's gone to NDC, super, super easy. That would have been a piece of cake. What we've spent the majority of our integration on is how do you harmonize and normalize content? Because at the end of the day, I'm going back to when you see this show up in, I will call it evolution of travel, although I almost said T2, it just needs to work. And so all of those differences, and I don't want to get overly technical. I can go there pretty quickly, and I don't want to do that. But the fundamental difference, like why is this so hard? There's many, many things, but if you want to bullet down, in a traditional world, when we talk about edifact source content, and you're consuming that through an indirect channel like a GDS, and on top of that, a corporate booking tool, the GDS owns offer creation. We have these ingredients called fares, schedules, and availability. We have secret sauce called shopping algorithms sitting inside a shopping application, and we produce those results. We then show them on your screen. You pick what you want. At that moment in time, that's the first time that Jeff is going to have visibility to that demand because he's going to see a P&R come through. The big shift here is that instant of demand, Jeff's going to have visibility to it. The airline, you're shifting that offer creation to the airline. And so that is like blowing your mind because it's truly changing the whole way the content's flowing. So the fact that now lots of content continues to have to work in this legacy world. Now more and more content is coming out in this new emerging modern distribution world. For us, that harmonization, it's about aggregation, normalization, and optimization. I call it the shuns. Those are the things that we focus on, and that's what makes it really complicated. And then I'm going to answer your next question, which is going back to my point around airline offer generation going to the airline. The risk of latency there is not just risk, it is a realized risk. The fact of latency is tremendous. And I'll just give you some context for that. In a traditional GDS shopping environment, the majority of shopping results are produced in under 1 second. If you have a more complex itinerary, multi-city, open jaw, lots of passengers, different passenger types, maybe you're going to get to 1.5, and God forbid you got to 2 seconds. We are praying for the day that we can get under 10 seconds for most airlines. And that's shocking. Like if you think about, you certainly you can be frustrated as you're sitting there waiting for the spinning on the platform. Think about the TMCs who have agents sitting there and the operational drain that is on their efficiency. And so what we're struggling with now is getting to where airlines understand. I think it was, and no disrespect, Jeff, I think it was ignorance on the airline of what happened within the technical kind of ecosystem of the GDS, of how much complexity and compute we were responsible for that they were shielded from. And so that's been a big eye-awakening moment, I think, for many of the airlines that we have 19 airlines integrated so far, working with another 50 or so more. And so it's significant, and I would tell you there's not a quick end in sight. What we've had to do within the Sabre environment is the answer has been just extend the time out. So what we did initially, when we first launched our application, we had an 8-second timeout. And remember, 2 seconds is like, boy, we were at 8. We had so much timing out across the various airlines that we've extended that to 10 seconds. We're getting pressured to extend that further. And so that's the problem space that now this is becoming less about a technical wires and plumbing, and this is around system optimization. And so that's really the next frontier that we have to focus on.
Very informative. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Kathy, along those same lines too. So we've been piloting some customers using Sabre on NDC, and some of the feedback we've gotten from some of those customers that are now accessing NDC through Evolution of Travel is, hey, Max, when I book, I may have to go get a cup of coffee, come back to get the results. So, and obviously we know that's not a good experience. And so we are working with, obviously, the GDSs and the airlines to obviously provide that feedback.
That's great. And Max, I'm going to...
If I can just say, I just want to compliment Kathy and Max. I mean, there's a lot of happy talk about NDC, and to have people, like this strong in the field, being this transparent about what the challenges are, to me is really heartening, because you can't solve problems if you don't acknowledge that they exist. And so, Kathy's amazing, Max is amazing, it's just encouraging for me, because we're heavily dependent on both of them. If this program of ours is going to work, we need Sabre, we need Concur, and it's always encouraging to be with these guys and hear the way they talk about this.
And Jeff,
it's
tell
very
them,
realistic.
what's one of your key success metrics for NDC? Y'all talked about it, at least in your product performance. Like, you care, and just having an airline you're entering into this saying performance is a KPI. That is unprecedented, guys. If you don't recognize how unusual that is, I will not name the name of the guilty. I've had one airline say, I don't care if I'm the best, just I don't want to be the worst. Mm-hmm. And I've had other airlines basically say, if they want my content, they'll wait. Like, those are the views of some. And granted, they are in markets where their market position allows them to be a little less flexible. And it's super frustrating. So back at you. It's great to be working with a partner like Delta.
That's great. Actually, I'm going to skip around a little bit. So, Kathy, I'm going to stay with you because this is some really good dialogue. And then I want each of you to answer this question, and because you all kind of touched on it a little bit, which is that whole ecosystem, right? And how it is, we know that NDC is a journey. We know that this journey is going to be long, and it hasn't been easy, but we know the North Star is going to be great. Can you talk about Sabre's position with the ecosystem and how you prepared for this journey?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I have a tattoo somewhere that talks about the power of the ecosystem. Because this was literally probably you have to decide which kind of platform you're going to focus on first, what's going to be most important. And one of the things, as I was coming into being responsible for NDC, the first BFO, blazing flash of the obvious, was that all of this had been solutioned inside of a room with people from IATA and airlines that knew how to run airline.coms. They had no clue about all the other links of the travel value chain. And so you come out of the gate without any awareness of the ecosystem in which you have to be a part of. And so one of the things that I did very, very early on in our NDC program is we established our customer advisory board. And the intent of the customer advisory board was to talk about the power of the ecosystem. Within our CAB, we call it a CAB, we have airlines from all around the world, all different types. We have agencies from all different segments, TMCs, OTAs, leisure, brick and mortar. We have corporations, so some of you may be part of that. If not, I tell you, you are well represented. And we have what I call kind of the other ecosystem technical players, so corporate booking tools, mid-office providers. And we have this session, we do it once a year in person and once a year virtually, and we talk about the really hard stuff. We do working groups around how to improve shopping payloads. We talk about kind of critical workflows for agencies and what we're dependent on airlines to do. And I think that has been the success of our program, even though maybe, it took us a little longer potentially to get out of the gate, but I think what we did by taking this ecosystem view, I know what we brought to the table is really powerful, and it is fit for purpose because of the voice of the ecosystem. So that's been a driving factor for me.
Fantastic. And Max, why don't we continue with you? Can you answer that as well?
Yeah, I think Kathy summarized it really well. Mm-hmm. For us to have success as an industry for something like the rollout of NDC, there has to be tight collaboration. And on the Concur side, I can assure you we are working weekly with our airline partners, with our GDS partners, with our TMC partners to make sure that, ultimately when we start, managing NDC content that is going to be optimized for our customers so they can get value, that's key.
Absolutely. And Jeff, you did touch on that a little bit, but I don't know if you want to go.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. We have to do this together, and the idea that an airline can just kind of show up and push something in when we're a very interconnected, interdependent ecosystem here. We're all here for you guys, but it takes all of us pushing in the same direction to accomplish much of anything. And one of us going unilaterally is only going to break stuff. And so, yeah, we are in the midst of deep discussions with both of our partners here and many others. it takes a while, but it's the only way to do this effectively and in a way that serves your interests, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to give you a sense, like Kathy, how many, because we're all collectively doing so much testing. So thousands, you're probably hundreds of thousands of hours as we're putting this NDC content together to make sure that it's going to drive value. I know we are on the Concur side. I can't imagine what you guys are
absolutely.
doing.
I quit counting because it would make me sad. The point though that I think is really, because I get, like, we talk up here and it's like, but I don't, give me an example. So like one of the things that was a really like a debating topic early on was this notion of instant payment. How many of your programs can require any type of pre-trip approval or authorization, or anybody have anything like that? A few of you, yes?
Yeah.
Most TMCs have rigorous mid-office processes to ensure that before that ticket is issued, you've got all the stuff that they need so that you get all the stuff that you need. And that was like one of the things that early on we took a position that said, we will not integrate you, Mr. Airline or Miss Airline, if you don't support deferred payment, because for the corporate segment, that is just unbearable because it's going to break too many things. But those are the types of issues that we've had to work through, that it wasn't technical necessarily. For some it was, because you had some airlines that literally wrapped their online API and called it an NDC API. But for others, it was a business process decision. And so those are the types of things that, again, by having the voice of the ecosystem, we're able to say, don't listen to me. I'm just Sabre. Let me bring these customers, and they need to tell you why this is important. And so we've kind of had to chop those down one at a time.
Absolutely, and I'm just going to talk about world travel for a minute, because we equally are at the front of the table, because we're in NDC working groups with the airlines, and those working groups, because we understand in order for this to be successful, everybody has to have a place there. It's the only way to be successful. Jeff, I want to jump over to you for a minute. One of the questions we get asked a lot in NDC world on the airline side from corporate buyers is, what does that look like from a contracting standpoint for a corporate account? Like, does it look different? Does it bundle? Does it not bundle? Like, what do you envision?
Yeah, so we hope that it looks different, because otherwise I'm not sure we've accomplished much. But we want it to be better for you guys. So like I was kind of alluding to earlier, we think there's going to be more that we can make available to you and your travel programs. It's up to you whether you want to incorporate any of those things into your travel program. But the idea here is that this kind of maybe oversimplified world that we've been living in the past, where it's maybe simple, but you don't have a whole lot of options, that we can just expand those options and you can start configuring your travel programs in ways that make the most sense for your company individually, and we're not kind of shoehorned into these simplified structures that we have today. So if you don't want things to change, they don't have to change, but we hope that the development that we're doing is going to be things that you want and will want to bring into your travel programs. And we are, again, part of this collaborative process is to make sure that that is exactly what we do, because it's one thing to develop the capability, and then the next question is, what are we going to do with that capability? What we do with that capability is going to be part of the process that we hear from you guys. What is missing from your travel programs today that you would like incorporated? So to answer that question, I certainly hope that the nature of contracting will change for the better. It's the natural outcome of having more options that you can think about as you put together the travel program that makes the most sense for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So in this room, we have a lot of travel buyers, and there are different phases of their journey with NDC. Some, when the early releases of it, wanted to be right in the front of the pack with it. Some are very nervous, et cetera. There are different places. I want to ask each of you if you could give them some advice on how to navigate this journey, the best way to navigate this journey. What would that be? You can start with you, Kathy.
Yeah, so a few things. First is form a perspective. The first thing you need to do, which I applaud all of you for being in this room, is just get educated. There was a lot of misnomers around what NDC is, what it isn't. So the first thing for you to do is just kind of understand at its core, what is it intended to be. Understand, like, who are your key suppliers? Who are your preferred suppliers? have a very real conversation with them. What is their, and to me, it's not as much about what is their NDC strategy. What is their content distribution strategy, and what is their content evolution strategy, and what role will NDC play in that? I mean, those are really basic questions, but that is so critical for you to understand because it lets you know what time horizon you have over kind of what period of time for you to make decisions you need to make on how you want to think about bringing NDC into your program. Then I'm going to say you got to put the mirror on yourself, and you need to ask yourself, what about my program needs to change to contemplate this new world? I'll tell you, in a world of dynamic fares, lowest logical fare doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't, because you don't know what the lowest logical fare is because it's dynamically constructed, and you receive it at the point. You have reference fares, right? So like other things, there are bid prices. That's what a fare quote becomes, right, is a bid price. So you're going to have to challenge yourself on how do I need to think differently within my program, because if you continue to hold your TMC I'm going to call it hostage to all the legacy workflows and processes, you're going to restrict and constrain your own opportunity to take advantage of what the new capabilities and contents that is out there. And then the last thing I'll end on is you need to decide what do you want to index towards. Are you indexing towards user experience, traveler experience? Are you indexing towards ensuring I have greatest breadth of content, lowest fare is most important? And the reason I say that is that we are still, I call it a point in time problem. This isn't going to be forever. But it's a fact, NDC content behaves a little bit differently. There are still some constraints around, can I exchange an EDIFACT ticket for an NDC ticket? Only one airline lets you do that today. So if you go book an NDC content and tomorrow you want to book an EDIFACT, most airlines, you can't reuse that. So if these are really critical tenets of your program, that might be an indication that says, I need to see this aspect of NDC evolve a little further before I operationalize it. If all you care about is I'm going to squeeze every single dollar that I can out of my program, and I'm willing to take on some potential irritants or inefficiencies, whatever word you want to call, then you might go faster. So those are just some basic things you need to ask yourself to then decide how you progress from there.
Perfect. How about you, Max?
Yeah, I'd say first, be patient. But really, this is an easy answer in my book. So World Travel Inc. is an elite partner of ours, and I've been working with World Travel Inc. for the last 15 years, and I know Barb and her team really well. And NDC is going to be an evolution for all of us, and it's going to be an evolution for you guys as well. But that team is very well positioned. In fact, they understand Concur probably than most Concurians do. And they're really well positioned to help guide you and navigate how you should be looking at NDC, when to adopt it, and those sort of things. So you're in really good hands.
Great. Thank you. And Jeff?
I'll say don't underestimate the power that exists in this room. I mean, this ecosystem is built for you. I mean, you are the customer at the end of the day, you and your travelers. And so this entire transformation should be something that is done for you and not to you. And if you feel like it's being done to you, you have the power of the purse to take your business elsewhere. And so you shouldn't feel powerless here. I mean, you guys ultimately are in control of all of this. And the success or the failure of any carrier and any carrier's approach to this transformation is going to be decided by you and who you support and where your travelers ultimately fly. I mean, where I grew up, the customer is the one that's in control at the end of the day. This is truly no different. It might not feel like that, but I can tell you from the airline side, that is very much the way that we're thinking about this, and we're watching closely the way traffic is shifting, and part of what encourages us about our strategy is we can see that people are voting with their wallets. And so don't underestimate your ability to influence outcomes here. You guys, at the end of the day, are in control of this.
Great advice, great advice. I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said well said.
Yeah, absolutely, well said. All three of you, very well said, thank you. I'm going to ask one more question and then for each of you, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So what are your thoughts with NDC and with the airlines providing the offers and the orders and the TMCs being able to service that, and then you have direct and indirect, same customer. What do you see the future of the TMC being? Who wants to start? Anyone?
I'm happy to. So we love our website. I'm sure we all love our websites. I'm sure you guys love your websites too. But we believe, and we have heard over and over, and it's core now to our belief that that corporate travelers need a one-stop shop. You need to be able to shop across airlines in one place. You need to build complete itineraries outside of air, but also, including your hotel and your ground transportation in one place. And you'd like to get serviced in one place. That is something that the TMCs do a really good job of providing to you, and that independent suppliers simply cannot. And so to us, as long as that's the view of the corporate travel community, that you need a one-stop shop in order to accomplish all of this, the role of the TMC is, as far as we're concerned, it's solid for as long as that exists, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jeff. I think the role of the TMC is really, I think it's going to be more and more important over the next 5 to 10 years as we continue to see more complexity. Obviously there's going to be more omni-channel type of bookings, right? It's going to naturally happen for our industry, and you're going to need somebody to help manage that, and the TMCs are very capable of doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, the TMC is the expert orchestrator of safe, efficient, hopefully frictionless, and when friction comes in, they are the WD-40 that takes care of it. And it's critical. Like, we live in a crazy world, and like crazy things happen every day, and you might be right where something's about to happen when something crazy happens, and you need to know that you have an expert that is sitting there ready to take care of you. Just last week, I was in, I don't know if any of y'all knew, it got crazy rain in New Orleans last week, like insanity, yes. Water coming out of the drain holes, and there was a tornado right near where I happened to be. I had 3 different outreaches from our TMC that our company uses asking me if I was safe and did I need help with anything of where my location, did I need help getting out. That made me feel like, first of all, my company cared about me. And second of all, that I knew I had someone on my side to take care of me. Like when you're my age, I'm 54 years old. I don't think about people taking care of me anymore. And they were, like in these critical moments. And so that role never goes away. Technology cannot replace human connection. And that is the role that I think the TMCs will play for as long as, I don't care what Gemini becomes, it's not going to be a person.
Yeah, and all 3 of us on this panel value the TMC. It is why we're spending so much time as we're collaborating on NDC through the GDS to make sure that it is optimized for the TMCs to deliver that value across the entire chain.
Exactly right. All I can say is I'm absolutely wowed. So let's go ahead and open it up. I want to make sure the audience has enough time for some questions and answers. So anyone have any questions for this impressive panel? Oh, I see one over there. Okay.
I'm a little nervous that she guaranteed answers, but we'll definitely take your questions.
Hi, I think this is geared towards Max. So with the new T2, is it, or the new
T2? We'll just make it
T2,
simple.
yeah,
We'll go T2.
Is there going? Will you guys be offering like the green leaf or anything for the hotel? Because I know that I have more pressure to show like sustainability.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be on.
Yes,
okay,
that is absolutely.
That was like my biggest thing. Sorry if that's all I got out of.
That's
this.
an easy one. I will take those. Any more of those?
Yes.
Let them fly.
Oh, we have a question right in front. Oh, there? I didn't see that. Sorry.
So not to be provocative, but I feel like there's lots of what I'll call blames and claims. And, you look at LinkedIn and all of the pundits and the pieces that they're saying. What's the most outrageous, and you can choose whether it's a claim or a blame, that you feel is out there that we could demystify for this audience?
I don't know which bucket, like the fact that GDSs are dinosaurs and aren't ready, that makes my head explode, like on a daily basis. Like, just come and sit down with me. I can show you to the extent of how freaking ready we are, the work that we've done. I think that, again, for airlines whose intentions are not, I'm going to call them not pure, and this is a disintermediation play, I think the level of airtime that just flat out to me with inaccuracies, it's frustrating. The amount of time that people like me have to spend on stages like this, do myth busting. But yeah, I just think the fact that we can't give credit across, I mean, you've got a variety of different technology players. The work that Concur's done is spectacular, that are working really hard to make this work. Give us a little credit. And I think that that's important, because that type of friction, it certainly doesn't help you, and it doesn't help any of us do our jobs.
Right answer.
That's a great one, Kathy. And Max can probably do the same, but I'll take a kind of a self-interested view of that one as well. The one that makes my head explode to the equivalent is when people say, Delta's not interested in NDC. Because when you look at the landscape of NDC right now, it's like a war zone, right? And so why would anybody want to push us into participating in as it exists today? We are very interested in NDC. We are interested in a phase of NDC that is very different from the world that exists today. So it does kind of crack me up when we hear, people say, well, Delta's got to get into the game, but the same people that are saying that are the people that can't stand the games that's currently being played. So we're like, are you listening to yourself here? So
they're in the locker room getting X-rays right now.
So anyway, it's a really good question, but that's the one that drives me as crazy as, and I can understand why Kathy would feel the same about the GDS claim, and I'm sure Max is now going to feel exactly the same about
Yes, and I'll say probably the one that, in fact, I read this recently too, that a couple of our competitors have tried to make the claim that we're putting travel out to pasture, that we don't believe in managed travel, and that is so far from the truth. The reality is we've made huge investments. I mean, let alone over the last couple of years, we've hired hundreds and hundreds of developers, right, to re-platform travel with our airline partners and our GDSs to deliver that value. So that is just the farthest from the truth. We are absolutely committed to managed travel, our TMCs, and our corporate customers.
Great question. Any other questions? Oh, I see one back in the room. There we go. Yes, because you know I'm shy.
This is Zager out of Richmond, and first of all, thank you for such a candid conversation. To hear the words collaborative and partnership is not something that we're hearing a lot in the space right now from some people, so that's appreciative. I think we all, whether our programs are large or small or medium-sized, tend to underestimate the amount of voice that we have in this role that we play. And I know that there's a lot of us have been struggling with, are we doing the right thing? Which direction do we need to go in? How do we make this work for us? And I can say that after some conversations were had early on with parties that were taking an approach that I felt was a bullying approach, and I asked a series of questions that there was no answer to. I asked if we could have an opportunity to follow up. At a later date to see how things kind of panned out, and the response was, well, if you don't sign up for this, then there's no point in talking. And I said, great, I will take my market share, I will shift it with every ounce of power that I have with my organization to every other airline that there is. And if you take my frequent flyer miles away, then that's going to be the way it is. And that will translate to the leisure side, that will translate to all the other elements of what it is that we do. Because it's not up to you alone to determine how I manage my program. And so while I understand that not everybody could be in that position, and there are a lot, trust me, we're going to get flack from everybody. The folks in certain markets are already bringing our phone saying, hey, what the heck? But to hear that there are opportunities for people to be collaborative and to think in a different way changes some of the thoughts that I have around the perspective. So I think we all need to remember that we have a voice, and we have a say, and it's new, and everything was new once, and so we need to dip our toe in, but it also doesn't hurt, like Jeff said, to sit back and watch how it unravels, to figure out where we want to go and what we want to do and how we want to proceed. Sometimes it's not the best to be the first in the pool. Sometimes it's better to step back and wait a little while.
I appreciate the fact that you're saying put your dollars elsewhere and use your money on other airlines, but in our market, in the Philadelphia area, it's very difficult to do. So as an airline, are you increasing flights in this area? Are you doing network planning? Sorry.
So, we understand, right, that there are, the airline networks are regionalized in some ways, and there's certain hostages, right, that might exist in Philadelphia. But just know that there are still a lot of competitive markets out there that there is head-to-head competition, and there's a fair amount of choice there. There's also, I know that people want to fly nonstop, but if you're making a connection, then there's certainly plenty of choices there. So, fully understood that there are markets that are difficult, but there's still an awful lot of choice out there, and I think don't let that. I know that was somewhat facetious. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I would feel warmer about that question if it was should Delta be investing in Pittsburgh? But just don't forget that, again, the power that you guys have. And I know that there's some limitations on that, but you guys are the reason everybody's doing what they're doing. You are the most important customers that exist in this industry. It's always been that way, and it always will be. And so there's no reason for you guys to be bystanders and just watch something happen. You guys have the most important seat in the house, which is the one controlling the purse strings.
And keep the feedback coming. We want to hear from you. The good, the bad. So this is an evolution.
Great. So in closing, I want to thank this very impressive panel. I think you'll all agree with me that they're amazing, and hopefully it demystified, made you a little bit more comfortable. I do want to add that we are NDC ready. I'm not saying it's easy. You saw our webinar. There are gaps. There's no question. But where it makes sense and where, based on your program, your account manager can sit down with you, go through if it makes sense to enable NDC in your markets. We are ready. We know that we have to make decisions to support your corporation, your travelers. So we're there for you. The North Star of NDC is absolutely fantastic and exciting. So I don't want it to be a scary thing, but we've just a journey to get there, and we are ready. And so please join me and give this group a round of applause.